My name's Professor Shakeel. I'm at Qureshi. Everybody knows me as Shak. I'm a consultant pediatric and adult interventional cardiologist. So what that means is I do keyhole procedures on babies and all the way to adult life. There are many types of complex and simple heart defects. Many of them can be treated. There are some in which we have multiple staged operations. Now, the important thing with all of these heart defects is we encourage children and young patients with these heart defects to undertake regular exercise. That has been a problem during the last 2 years almost because of COVID, and so people have done less exercise than they ought to have done. But it is very important to do regular exercise. There are some heart defects, for example, complicated ones like Fontan operation, where it is important to have leg exercises, building up your leg muscles, because the heart relies on blood returning from the legs. So that's one area which is actually underemphasized, that you need to do exercise, especially involving the legs. It's not just arms, but legs as well. Other heart defects, there are no particular types of exercises that we recommend, but all dynamic exercises are very important. And all of those will then lead to better health and better function in the longer term. With all the heart defects, obviously our aim is to prolong survival, so most or a majority of our patients become adults, but they still have these complex heart defects, complex operations, as well as simple ones. And so the same proviso applies to the adult patients as well in terms of exercise. As we get older, we become less energetic, less athletic, but many of these heart defects really rely on your fitness levels, especially these complex heart defects which rely on blood returning from the legs. So it is important for the adults to keep up with regular exercise as well. More than 20 years ago, there was absolutely no emphasis on transition from pediatric to adult cardiology of patients with congenital heart disease. But obviously over the years, what has happened is there is an increasing population of adults with congenital heart disease, and whereas in the past the pediatric cardiology team used to look after adult cardiology patients with congenital heart disease, it became clear that that workload was increasing and was in excess of what could be managed normally. And so teams developed, adult congenital heart disease teams have developed, and that means that the patients have to be transitioned from the pediatric department to the adult department. And so that has become important. We have CNSs, nurses, who provide that support both in pediatric as well as adult congenital side of the team. But they're the ones that are the key to providing a smooth transition between pediatric cardiology department and adult cardiology department. So that's very important, and this is another area where I think echo will have an important role to play in the future as well. On many occasions in our clinics and in the hospital, there are patients, children, teenagers with heart defects whose parents and the patients require a lot more support and a lot more information about the day-to-day activities, day-to-day issues. We may not have adequate amount of time in the clinics to spend with the parents to go through all the details. That then means that there needs to be a better supporting mechanism, a supporting structure for those parents and patients. And that is where an organization like ECHO has a very important role to play, because the parents can contact with ECHO, make contact with other patients with similar heart defects, make contact with parents with similar issues, and transfer information to each other. So that is a very, very important role that ECHO has to play.
Okay, so thank you very much for that, Shak. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that. I've got some questions now from the ECHO community that I would like to ask you, if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
And the first one is it recommended that patients wear medical bracelets and what benefit do they have?
Well, patients occasionally will have some emergency problems, and they may be a long way away from specialist centres. Locally, paramedics, local hospitals may have to start some treatment urgently. And if they do not have all the information available about what treatment may have been given previously, what operations may have been done, what the heart defect was, then it may take them 1, 2, 3 days to get all that information and make decisions. That means the decisions for treatment or appropriate treatment are delayed. If you have a bracelet with all that information on it, about which hospital, what type of heart defect, then the local teams can act swiftly, and within minutes they will have that information and make correct and appropriate decisions.
Thank you. That's very informative, so thank you for that. So you've worked with cardiac families for a very long time, if you don't mind me saying that. And what's different about seeing somebody who's, say, 18 years old to somebody who's 4 years old?
So the needs of those different age group patients are different. So, for example, an 18-year-old or any teenager will have all sorts of other additional issues to deal with in life, not just the heart defect, but the growth, the studies, activity, various things like that, emotional support. A 4-year-old is still growing and developing, and therefore their needs are going to be different. So we can't really have a blanket policy of information provided to the parents for a 4-year-old compared with an 18-year-old. They both have their own different requirements, and we have to work out ways of providing support for all those age groups.
Yeah, that makes sense, thank you. So I love this question. So Daisy, age 7, would like to know if you could be any superhero, who or what would you be?
Oh,
a tough one, I know.
That's a tough one. I have to think about superheroes first, and I'll get completely lost. But the sort of things I do and have done over the last 30 years include charity work on children with heart defects outside of UK and Europe in developing countries. And so over the years I've worked with another charity, Chain of Hope it's called, plus individually, voluntarily myself, where we've taken teams to different countries and treated children with heart defects by keyhole procedures as well as open heart operations. If I could be a superhero, I'd pick Superman, because then I can fly into one country, spend some time treating children, then fly to another country and focus on Africa, for example. You can just fly from one country to the next, because the services in many parts of Africa are very severely underdeveloped. And so that would be one superhero I can think of.
That's brilliant, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And my last question of the day for you, Shak, is what activity, job or hobby have you undertaken that would surprise the echo community?
I don't think people think of me as a sporting sort of person, but a few years ago, I used to play cricket before, but a few years ago I took up golf. And so for the last few years, and especially during the lockdown, when the golf courses have been open, I've played a lot more golf than probably I would have done or I should have done. So that's been one. And then the other thing that's happened because of that charity work that I do and teaching work that I do overseas, the perception in those countries with the lockdown here was, and elsewhere, was that I had time on my hands and so I could help. So with the technology, using Zoom, using Teams, using WhatsApp video links, many of these people, all friends, who wanted to do keyhole procedures on children with heart defects, asked me to sign in or join them on those video calls. And then I would spend 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours sitting there and talking them through a particular procedure, simple procedure as well as complex procedure. And so that's actually been a rather surprising development, because prior to this, prior to the COVID, over the years, I used to fly to these different countries to help and do these procedures, whereas now it looks as if there is a more efficient way of doing it.
That's fantastic. That's going to surprise a lot of people. It certainly surprised me. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank
we
you.
really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
So thank you.